Welcome to Legends for Sleep. Here, epic tales are retold as gentle bedtime stories, guiding you into dreams with the voices of dwarves, the whispers of mountains, and the songs of forgotten realms. Close your eyes, let your mind wander, and may this story carry you peacefully into sleep.
Tonight, we step quietly into Middle-earth, a land of shadow and starlight, the snow-crowned mountains and halls of stone where the voices of dwarves once rang like thunder. Long ago, the folk of Durin dreamed of reclaiming Khazad-dûm, the mighty city men called Moria. Balin, son of Fundin, led his people through the East-gate, full of hope. For a little while, the great chambers glowed again with torchlight. Lanterns swayed in the deep halls. Hammers struck an echoing song against the rocks. But the darkness below did not sleep. Orcs stirred in hidden pits, and older, deeper things moved under the roots of the mountain. At last, Balin fell beside the still waters of the Mirror, and his people were lost with him. Moria fell silent once more, a place of grief, a place of shadows. Yet the dwarves never forgot, though their hammers rang in Erebor and Aglarond, though they built new halls of stone and silver. Their hearts yearned for the old home beneath the misty mountains. Always they listened for the mountain's whisper. Always they longed. After the fall of Sauron, peace returned to the lands, but not for long. Travelers began to speak of fires glowing again in the deep places, a cool laughter echoing in the dale of Azanulbazar, of orcs gathering once more in the blackness of Moria. And so the eyes of the dwarves turned to their young king, Durin VII, grandson of Dain Ironfoot, said to be the image of Durin the Deathless himself, grave, noble, with eyes like caverns lit by hidden flame. Among his people, whispers grew. Prophecy stirred. It was said that in the days of Durin Reborn, the halls of Khazad-dûm would shine again. And so, beneath the high stars above Erebor, Durin listened, and in the silence, the stone itself seemed to speak. Return, son of Durin. Return and awaken the halls of your fathers. In the golden halls of Erebor, under the lonely mountain, the lords of the dwarves gathered. The air was heavy with smoke from the braziers, and the walls shone with carved stone and gold. Durin sat upon the high seat. Around him were the chiefs of the Iron Hills, the messengers from Aglarond, and the elders of Erebor. All voices were troubled, for the tidings were grim. Travelers spoke of orcs in the passes of the misty mountains. Caravans came late or not at all, and in hushed tones, men of Dale whispered of strange lights in the East-gate of Moria. The eldest among them rose. His beard was white, and his voice was slow. "We know what lies there," he said softly. "Balin fell. All his people perished. Shall we add more names to the stones of grief?" The council fell into silence. The fire crackled. The shadows of the pillars stretched long upon the floor. At last Durin spoke. His voice was calm, but behind it burned the quiet fire of his heart. "Long have we hidden from our own halls. Long have we lived as wanderers, while orcs crawl over the works of our fathers. If there is hope in prophecy, then let it be fulfilled. If doom awaits us, let it be ours, and not left for others to bear. The time has come to look upon the East Gate again." His words fell heavy in the chamber. Some bowed their heads in fear. Others lifted their chins in pride. But in every heart, the old longing stirred. And so it was agreed. A company would march forth, banners carried high, and axes ready. Not in haste, nor yet in folly, but in the slow and solemn strength of the dwarves. Thus began the first steps of Durin VII, the last heir of Durin the Deathless, toward the dark shadow of Moria. And so, under quiet stars, the dwarves made ready for their long march. From the halls of Erebor they came, their boots striking softly upon the stones, their banners whispering in the night wind. Lanterns swayed in the hands of the younger folk, and the older ones carried axes and shields that had seen many years.
Durin VII walked at their head. His eyes, deep as hidden caverns, looked westward toward the misty mountains. The journey would be long, through dale and plain, across river and forest, until at last the shadow of Khazad-dûm would rise before them. The folk of Dale gathered to watch them depart. Some stood silent, with hats pressed to their hearts. Others called blessings in low voices. Even the children were hushed, for they felt the weight of the moment. The dwarves of Durin were not marching to war in anger, but in solemn memory and in longing. Days stretched into weeks. The company moved slowly across wilder land, along the running waters of the Anduin, and beneath the endless skies. At night they camped by the riverside, fires glowing red against the dark, voices rising in deep songs of stone and home. Their path led them past the old Gladden fields, where reeds whispered secrets of ages long past. Some among them shivered at the thought of what history lay buried there, but still they marched on. Beyond lay the vales of the Anduin, quiet and green, and there the stars shone kindly above their resting places. The road was not without peril. Dark shapes sometimes stirred in the far distance. Shadows moved in the trees, but the orcs did not dare come close to such a host. The sound of many dwarves moving together, their voices rumbling in low chant, was enough to drive fear into the hills. And so, step by slow step, the dwarves drew nearer to the high peaks of the misty mountains. The white crown of Caradhras shone far ahead, gleaming in the sun, and beyond it, unseen but ever present in their hearts, lay the dark arch of the East-gate of Moria. Durin walked in silence, but his thoughts were heavy with memory. He thought of Balin, son of Fundin, who had perished in those same deeps. He thought of his forefathers, who once walked the great halls of Khazad-dûm, and he thought of the whisper he had heard, like stones speaking in stillness. "Return, son of Durin, return to the halls of your fathers."
At last they came into the Dimrill Dale, the green valley that lay beneath the Redhorn. There the mirror glimmered like glass, calm and deep. The dwarves stood silently at its shore, gazing into the still waters. For there, it was said, the crown of Durin could be seen reflected among the stars. One by one they bowed their heads. The valley lay in hush. And in that moment, the journey's end was near. The east gate of Khazad-dûm loomed before them, black and silent, waiting. The Dimrill Dale lay quiet beneath the peaks.
Snow glittered on the red horn above, and the mirror shone still as polished glass. Yet before the black arch of the East-gate, shadows stirred. From the dark mouth of Moria, the orcs poured forth. Their voices shrieked against the still air, harsh, cruel, echoing from the cliffs. Torches flared like red stars in the night, and the dale, once peaceful, became a place of dread. But the dwarves did not falter. Their ranks held firm, shields lifted, axes gleaming in the faint light. Durin VII stood at their head, calm as stone, his banner rippling softly above him. With a deep voice he cried aloud, steady and strong, "Baruch Chazad! Axes of the dwarves! Chazad Aimenu! The dwarves are upon you!" And so the battle began. The orcs rushed like a black tide, but the dwarves stood unshaken. Their axes rose and fell in rhythm, like hammers ringing upon anvils. Every stroke was heavy and sure, every shield unbroken. Though the enemy was countless, the dwarves moved as one, their voices deep in unison, like thunder rolling through the dale. The clash rang out beneath the mountains. Stone echoed with the sound of iron. Torches fell and were extinguished. Smoke rose and drifted away into the cold air. Durin pressed forward, his people close behind him. Step by step, they drove the orcs back toward the East-gate, their courage burning bright against the night. And for a moment it seemed as though the dale itself remembered the strength of the Chazad and the pride of the House of Durin.
At last, with one final cry, the dwarves broke the orc line. The creatures scattered into the shadows, vanishing through the black gate or fleeing into the cliffs. Silence returned, broken only by the wind over the valley. The dale was still again. The Mirror shone, calm and bright, as though no battle had ever touched its shores. The dwarves stood weary, but unbowed, their banners still lifted high. And in the hush that followed, the stars came out, glimmering above the peaks of the misty mountains. When the clamor of battle faded, the dale fell into silence once more. Only the wind stirred among the trees, and the quiet lapping of the Mirror touched the still air. The dwarves stood among the fallen torches and broken weapons. Their shields were scarred, their axes dulled, yet their hearts were steady. For they had endured, and the black tide had been turned away. Durin looked to the East-gate. Its arch yawned dark and endless, the stones cold and unyielding. It seemed less a doorway and more a wound upon the mountain. No light entered, no sound emerged, yet all who gazed upon it felt the weight of a presence hidden deep within. That night the dwarves made camp in the valley. Fires were lit, though small, and voices lifted in quiet song. Their music was low and steady, echoing like distant thunder through the passes. It was not a song of triumph, but of memory. For they thought of Balin and of all who had fallen in years past. Their names were spoken softly into the night, like prayers carried upon the wind. Yet even as the firelight glowed, unease crept among them. From the dark mouth of Moria, strange sounds drifted. A faint tremor, like stone shifting in deep caverns. A breath of air, cold and hollow, as if exhaled from the mountain itself. Some said it was the orcs retreating into the depths. Others whispered of something older, something vast and unseen that moved in the forgotten dark, but none dared speak its name aloud. Durin sat in silence, his eyes fixed upon the gate. He felt the pull of the mountain, heavy as fate. And though no voice stirred the air, in his heart he seemed to hear again the whisper of stone. Not yet, not yet. The deeps are not ready to be woken. And so the dwarves kept their vigil. The night passed slowly, stars wheeling above the silent peaks. The Mirror remained calm, untouched, as though it held the memory of all that had come before, and all that was yet to be. When dawn broke, the valley lay hushed and still. The orcs had fled. The banners of Durin yet stood. But in every heart a quiet knowing remained that shadows deeper than orcs still lingered within Khazad-dûm.